everyone, welcome back to the BVTV channel, and today's topic in Dead by Daylight, we're going to be talking about Zarina Kassir, and well, we've been doing these for a long time now, so let's get right into it. Growing up in a Lebanese household in Brooklyn, Zarina struggled with two unique cultural identities. She felt this cultural difference painted a target on her back. To avoid ridicule and bullies, she observed what popular kids liked and learned to project the image they preferred. At school, she would go by the name Karina, dye her hair lighter, and trash her foreign lunches. At home, the news was always on. Urgent reports of injustice captivated Zarina, inspiring her to produce her own stories. When she was a teenager, she embraced her real name and roots and borrowed her father's digital camera to interview members of her community in Bay Ridge by posting her content online. She slowly built a loyal following. Each week, she picked a new issue and challenged people to speak their mind on camera. Now, this is actually what I like a lot, is because, we go to this backstory, and the first things I used to want to do journalism for a long time, sports journalism to be specific. This takes a lot of guts, and it's a very great industry, but also a very scary one because, when you seek the truth, a lot of people don't like that. A lot of people don't want to, can't handle the truth. So, yeah, it's a very scary industry as well to get into. You will get a lot of threats and things like that. I know someone who's doing that now gets a lot of threats for seeking the truth, and except we just don't like to hear the truth. But going back to the story, when she heard a rumor that a fast food restaurant owner was exploiting workers, she decided to go undercover and produce a hard-hitting film. She modified her look, faked an accent, and secured a waitress position at the restaurant. After 3 weeks of unpaid work, she was fired for demanding her paycheck. To retaliate, she posted clips of the restaurant's owner's abusive behavior, and within hours, the news had picked up her story, but somehow spun it to create sympathy for the restaurant owner. Typical news, not a shock. Yellow journalism is a thing, folks. Embittered by the experience, Zarina committed to become an independent producer and filmmaker. Her first feature film was for a competition at school inspired by an English class poem about Sacco and Vanzetti. I've actually never heard of these two in school. Um, two Italian migrants controversially executed for murder. For murder. Oh my! Oh God! That's not good. Her film won first prize and launched her as an uncompromising documentary filmmaker. Months later, her world turned upside down. A public video surveillance camera filmed her father carrying two coffees at a street corner a few blocks from home. A tall hooded man stood behind him. The man shouted something at her father, who took a step back, startled. Suddenly and unexpectedly, the man pushed him into the street as a car sped by. This is terrible. Like, I actually feel really sad. Like, this was so good, so happy, and then took a massive turn, and now I feel really sad. Death is final, and it's very saddening, especially like that. That man was murdered, and that must have been a heartbreaking toll on her. To be honest, I couldn't imagine. I could never want that for anybody. I just that's a horrible feeling. His death sent a shockwave of anger and pain that left Zarina in pieces. It's funny, as I just said, that that's a tough blow for anybody. The perpetrator, Clark Stevenson, was soon arrested and incarcerated for manslaughter. Zarina became obsessed with Clark, his gang IR-28, his short prison sentence, his apparent lack of remorse. A year went by and she had uncovered enough about Clark to shed more light on his crime. With the last of her inheritance, she bought a new camera and a plane ticket to Nebraska and bribed the warden at Hellshire Penitentiary to let her interview Clark. This is where you go all in, and I don't blame her. Like I said, it's hard to blame her for something that someone was taken away from her without, for no reason. It was a despicable crime, and she's gonna find the truth. That's what I love about Serena, that she's determined to find the truth. She does not stop, and when she puts her mind to it, this is a person who will get the job done. And I love that. I think it's like an awesome trait to have. She filmed their first meeting and asked him about her father and his gang and his violent tendencies. Clark refused to talk, but in the weeks that followed, she used her research to push his buttons and finally got a confession of a premeditated crime. Zarina's film became a tribute to her father and the trail of blood left by gang violence. When the news finally picked up the story, it was because the film had gained international acclaim. Some inmates contacted her when they heard about her documentary. Most of them shared eccentric anecdotes in hopes of being filmed, but one story stood out from the rest. An entire wing in Hellshire Penitentiary, it was sealed off because of the Mad Mick Massacre. The official story was an Irish outlaw had heartlessly slaughtered the warden and his guards. Now I'm going to stop right here because if you actually seen or have read the Death Slinger story, this is where this ties in. I won't go too deep, but I love how this game is able to tie in the backstory of the Death Slinger, because again, Irish guy, the Death Slinger, and is then able to tie off, this part. So that Irish criminal that was Death Slinger. Now you're seeing the connections already within the two stories unravel how much that one has to do with the other, yet they don't even really know it just yet. And yeah, so that was the, again, Mad McMasker. But from working on her Sacco and Vanzanti film, Zarina knew that the official story wasn't always the true story. And we can honestly agree, I think all of us can agree that sometimes the true story is not necessarily the official story. And she investigated Hillshire records and found an Irish American inmate sentenced to 20 years for assault in 1860. Insane when you really think about it. According to the penitentiary's blueprint, the sealed-off wing was part of the Hellshire's original infrastructure. If she reached that sealed-off section, she could shed some light on the Mad Mick story. All she needed was a way. And see, here goes the part I was talking about determination, about not quitting because technically she's not allowed in there because she's basically restricted. And it's crazy how the Death Star in 1860 comes up, but now the story is revealed to her in a modern day time. It's insane. And I'm gonna say this again, it's insane to see how many stories actually like intertwine with one another. And that's almost 100+ years later, this person's finding it. How much they have to do with it, like a lot of these characters in this game that Dead by Daylight makes are relied upon the other. Without the other survivor or without the killer, they wouldn't be together. That's why I love the in deep detail of lore this game has. But let's say going to it. Let's go. Next morning, she was joining the Hellshire Penitentiary walking tour. She blended in the crowd of jet-lagged tourists and veered off when they headed toward the kitchen. She memorized the blueprint and knew exactly where to go and how to avoid surveillance cameras. An unexpected security detail nearly cut her investigation short, but she was able to hide under an old, dusty prison bed. When the guards disappeared, she continued her search and finally found Mad Mick's cell. Entering the dark, dilapidated cell, Zarina ran her hand across the old brick wall. Her fingers felt a marking and traced the letters Death to Bayshore. A loose brick fell, revealing a gap. Now, this to me is very, very scary. Now, why would Death to Bayshore be a thing if this? I mean, we obviously know it's premeditated. This is the real kicker here. How would they know that? And it doesn't give us a timeline when Zarina was around. It does not give us a timeline. Remember that. And these cultural issues that happen could sound like 18. No, they really couldn't. I don't think they'd sound like 1860. That's the thing. That's the kicker. So the timeline here, what year is Zarina in? And we obviously 1860 was the year of Death Singer, kind of the year. So very interesting to see how timeline here it kind of becomes an issue. But how would, even if they were in the same time, how would you premeditate Death to Bayshore? That's obviously someone wanted her to find that, but why? That is the real question here. Why would someone write that, and why, ironically, would she be there? You see what I'm saying? There's just a lot of question marks that kind of pop up in that just one little paragraph. But continuing on with the story, she inserted her hand. Fingers landed on a piece of old cracked metal. She fished it out. An old rusty wrench. A damp chill ran down her spine. As she looked down, a man lay at her feet, bleeding his limbs contorted and his eyes dark and terrified. Her father's eyes, a pool of crimson blood on black pavement. This is where we know that now she basically went into the realm of the entity because the entity can manipulate that. Her father's dead, so there's no way her father can be right there, as we know before. So again, that's just how smart. And if when we go to do the Death Slinger story, probably in like a week and a change from this one, about 2 weeks from now, we'll see why that wrench is so important. But keep the wrench in mind. Anyway, to see her father's eyes, how would she be able to see him if, of course, that look and everything? So that's when we know we're finally into the entity's realm. The entity's not pulling her into his realm or her realm or its realm. And a pool of crimson blood on black pavement, paralyzed black fog filled the cell as she shut her eyes to push these nightmarish visions out of her mind. And folks, that was it. Then that's obviously how she was transported to the realm of the entity. So if you actually did like this video, I think it kind of summed it up pretty well. I mean, I went in between the story to kind of give you guys a constant insight. But overall, I think I kind of nailed this one. So with that being said, please do leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to BVTV. We'll see you on, if I'm not mistaken, my calendar says Wednesday for a stream, and then on Saturday we will be doing a killer perk video of every single killer perk. Last minute I did it of a group of the killer teachables and rate them off their teachable group. This time we're going to be going one by one into a deeper meaning and deeper detail for every single perk. We're going to rank them in a tier list, and I hope to see you guys there. So with that being said, everybody, please do leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to BVTV. With that being said, everybody, stay off the hook.